Hey nerds! Today I'm going to talk about what's been going on with my work in progress lately and how that relates to figuring out your writing process. A little over a month ago, so like early September, I had about 32,000 words in my first draft, and I loved them and I enjoyed writing them, but I was really struggling to write what came next. I had just written the first plot point, so the big major character decision that transitions from part 1 or act 1 into part 2. And it was that transition and that beginning of part 2 that I was really having a hard time figuring out. My original idea for this book involved the story taking place over a period of 12 months. So there were going to have to be a lot of jumps forward in time because obviously I could not account for every day in those 12 months. And one of those big time jumps was going to have to happen between part 1 and part 2. It was going to be about 2 months that I would be skipping over. After writing the first scene of part 2 3 times, from scratch each time, I realized that the time jump was the root of my problem because I had the scene before where my character was making a decision to act on the problem that was before her, and then I had to be like, and now 2 months have passed and she hasn't really done anything yet, because I couldn't have anything too crucial happen in those 2 months I was jumping over. Anyway, I eventually decided that I needed to compress the timeline of the story and have it happen over 3 months instead of 12, which doesn't really sound like it would make that big of an impact on the first 32,000 words, but it actually would. Because I was kind of moving the calendar of events around, I knew I would need to reorder some scenes and add some new ones, take some out. And something similar had happened with the project previous to this one, where I got a little past the first plot point into part 2 and realized that part of my setup and the way I had crafted the world and characters wasn't going to work. With that project, I decided to follow kind of the conventional advice and not go back and change things until revisions. So I just kept going and put the changes into place with the rest of the book, and then when I was finished and doing revisions, I went back and added those things and changed those things in the beginning of the book. I know that works for a lot of people, but I hated doing that. When I finished the manuscript, I wanted to be done drafting. I didn't want to redraft the first, I think it was like 20,000 words. Also, as I made those changes in the beginning of the book, it ended up making this domino effect that I didn't expect with other elements of the story, and I ended up needing to rewrite a lot of things later in the book as well because of it. So when I came to this point in my current project where I knew that I was going to have to do some rewriting and some reorganizing of the beginning, I decided to just go back and do it now instead of waiting until revisions. So now I have made those changes. I have rewritten the beginning of the book. It's a little bit shorter now too, which is a good thing because it was a little too long, and it works a lot better than the old version did, and I feel a lot better moving forward into the rest of the book. This has really been an important lesson for me in learning from my previous mistakes and figuring out my own writing process. Because obviously this was not the first time that I've gotten a quarter of the way through a book and realized that I was doing it wrong. It wasn't even the second time that that's happened to me. That's happened with nearly every project I've written. Usually by the time I get to that first major turning point in the story, that transition between acts or parts, whatever you call them, I realized that there was maybe a better way to do things because now I know the world and the story and the characters a little bit better. And now I feel like I know to expect that when I get to this point in a book, and I can make myself sit down and evaluate and say, is this working so far? Are there changes I need to make? So I don't feel quite so conflicted and frustrated about it as I used to with previous projects. Obviously, every book you write is going to be different in some way, sometimes multiple ways. You are going to have different processes with each book, but there's also going to be things that are going to be common to your process in every story you write. You can be on the lookout for those issues before they crop up when you know that they happen every time, and you'll know how you best deal with them, and that hopefully will make the writing process a little bit less frustrating. Anyway, that's it for today. Be sure to check out the rest of our videos this week, and don't forget to join us this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time for our live chat.